A setback in recovery could be the most dreaded and upsetting part of the anxiety condition. You've been making progress or symptom-free, feeling pretty good about yourself, when some stress, some tension shocks and frightens you into experiencing a symptom or two. You panic, convince yourself that you must have slid back to square one, or yes, the doctors must have missed something and this proves you're seriously ill, which is not even the case. There is no need for worry or panic. If you were to allow this first shock to pass, it would dissipate without a problem. If, on the other hand, you're going to add second fear, that what-if fear to the mix, your body will be glad to shift into the fear adrenaline fear mode again. So why not bypass this step? You have the power to do so. It's too easy to fall into the pattern of watchful living, checking in, and walking on eggshells after this small interruption. But these obstacles are merely challenges which you're extremely capable of overcoming. Don't be fooled by a mere bump in the road. It's like falling off your bike after you've learned to ride. You're not going to put it back in the garage and forget about riding. If that were the case, none of us would ever have enjoyed years of biking. No, instead, you're going to hop back on and start cycling again because you're not a quitter and you enjoy riding. Well, you've enjoyed living symptom-free and you're going to continue forward with this as well. And it's much simpler now because you're familiar with the way out, the way through. So don't give this a moment's worry. You can do this. Everyone experiences a little barrier in their progress. This is normal and to be expected. The problems only arise when you allow it to throw you and you add second fear to the mix. You don't have to do this because you know the way past the anxiety condition now. Some stress or some memory has in fact caused you to become temporarily sensitized, which made you susceptible to some body symptom again. The key word is temporary. I can't stress strongly enough the word temporary. And one of the greatest things I've learned over the years is temporary can define a few seconds or merely a few moments. It may define the tiniest increment of your day, of your life, an infinitesimal fraction of time, which translates into a blip on the screen of your life. Once again, you have a choice. The choice is how you choose to react. The problem you decide to assign to this occurrence is up to you. You really do have a choice. You define it. You decide. Its power is contingent on the importance you assign to it. If you assign it too much importance, it becomes more powerful than it really is, more significant. If you perceive it and label it as a threat, your mind will make sure you react as if it truly is a threat or danger to you. And yes, you will be frightened because you can scare yourself again. You can frighten yourself into believing a symptom is really something to be concerned about, something to give credence to. And you already know this isn't true. It's up to you to use your adult voice and change your inner dialogue about this. Tell the truth about what it is, what it's not, and move forward. Some tension, some stress temporarily activated your warning system. So what? For one moment, you began looking backward into the past and what had happened before you knew how to handle anxiety reactions. But things have changed now. You're fully equipped to handle anything that comes your way. And it's all predicated on how you interpret a situation, what your perceptions are. All that happened was a minor obstacle temporarily fooled you into leaving the moment, and you began to worry about things that happened in the past. You have the power to turn those thoughts around, to see it for what it is, and continue on with your day. Stop, breathe, loosen, and embrace, and you're back. And if you feel a symptom happens to sneak into your life for a few minutes in a day, you know how to deal with it and realize you are probably sensitized to a minor degree. It happens to the best of us. Maybe you had an argument with your spouse, words with a friend, felt angry over a conversation you had with your boss, or maybe you ate a stimulating substance, a drink or two the night before, too much sugar or a caffeinated drink. After all, you are human. If you start making this response bigger than it is, then your body will be glad to respond. But what a waste of precious time. Remember, a few minutes or seconds of discomfort does not qualify that this is a conclusion or signal that it's back, because it's not. It's merely a fleeting moment born out of tension or additional stress or worry in your life. It means nothing. Nothing is back. Nothing has returned. Nothing is going to get you. This is purely a stress reaction, nothing more. And I'm not saying these obstacles are not annoying and interfering. They certainly can be disappointing just when you think you're out of the woods. but we're all human, not machines or robots, and we do feel stress and its symptoms every now and again. In fact, I believe there's a lesson in everything that occurs anyway in our lives. If we get the lesson, we get to move on. The lesson here is that perfection is a myth. This proves to us that stress is present in all our lives. It always will be, but we all own the skills to overcome the stressful times. This gives us the opportunity to apply these skills and prove to ourselves once again that they really do work. It doesn't mean we have to be ever vigilant to these methods because they eventually become internalized and a part of our lives. And what it does mean is that we often need to reevaluate our lives, the stress factors in our lives, and take some time to regroup and find out the current triggers. Then we can deal with them. If we recognize them for what they are, and we're not frightened, and realize they're fleeting, we can continue on with our lives without getting caught in this trap of worry. You see, the problem is if you begin adding what-if thoughts, the situation gains more potency. So choose to be aware of your reactions. You always have control over the way you react. Maybe this situation presents itself and seems to grow out of nowhere, but if you trace the past 24 hours before it happened, you'll usually locate the source of the tension. Even if you did feel upset by the feelings, they'll still fade out because you know the way out. I remember years ago when all of a sudden a symptom would return and it would throw me for a loop. I'd just sit there in disbelief thinking how unlucky I was to feel these symptoms again. I took it personally and felt that I was being punished or just didn't have it in me to get over this condition. Nothing could have been further from the truth. Little did I realize I had recovered from this condition by that time, and some stress or worry, even some tension temporarily upset me. And this creates energy in your body, and if you don't use it up, it remains in your body and sometimes surfaces later on, manifesting itself in anxiety symptoms. It makes logical sense. Remember, each and every anxiety reaction has a logical explanation and can be reversed. Sometimes you have to stop and look at what's going on in your life. Is there some upset that is creating excess energy in your body? If so, you need to deal with it, or you need to burn off the excess energy it creates. Another thing that upset me through my recovery process was I would become annoyed with myself for not being able to deal with a small memory jab, which created a short-lived stress reaction. But I learned there are certain things in life we have no control over, and our memory happens to be one of them. Sometimes you have to just let a thought spend itself and move on. Remember, it's your interpretation of a thought, a situation, an event, your perception. It's what you make it. You're still in control. So allow those memories to float through your consciousness without adding second fear to them. And move on. You know, I really dislike the use of the word setback when referring to this stage of the anxiety condition. So often there's some tension, some worry, some stress in one's life, and they have to regroup for a moment or two. This is a mere obstacle, a small challenge along the way. When we label something, we often feel we have to live up to its description, and no barrier exists unless we make it so. This isn't a setback, it's merely a temporary bump in the road, nothing more. One thing that's essential towards permanent recovery is the willingness to consistently reinforce your training. Continue to use your coping skills and to keep moving ahead. Go forward. For instance, if I had a difficult time driving my car in a particular place, I'd make it my business to return to that spot and do it again, using my skills this time. I would rewrite, override a negative memory. I would do the same thing in a store or restaurant or work. I would go back, usually at a convenient time, and recreate the situation, but this time with a successful outcome. I would slow down, take my time, and when I used my skills, it was once again a successful event. This way, when I thought of my last time there, it would evoke a positive memory. This really helps. Once we realize what to do and how to do it, we have to keep on doing it. I believe the best lesson learned here is patience and how to calmly allow a minor reaction pass through you. Let it spend itself and move on. It's the worrying that adds fuel to the incident. The worry cycle is tricky. Add a little fuel and it's up and running again. One worry stops and another pops up to take its place, but you have the power to interrupt this cycle and move forward. And don't be upset if your first reaction is shock, disappointment, and unhappiness. This is a normal reaction in the circumstance. Your body is reacting normally to the messages your brain is sending it. But let me assure you that nothing is back and nothing has been undone. You still retain all your skills, techniques, and methods. This is nothing to be alarmed about. I can remember waking up during the night with a few symptoms and being fine when I rose the next morning. But this was because I didn't allow myself to place a great deal of importance on the reaction. I also recall a very stressful emotional day and feeling very uncomfortable one night in a restaurant, but I refused to fuel it with negative dialogue, engaged in conversation, and it never built into an anxiety situation. I started allowing myself to be human again. I didn't expect 100% peaceful mind and body all the time and understood why I might have become a little reactive. Emotions create adrenaline. Adrenaline is not intrusive unless you become rattled by its existence on these emotional days. We are all human. I will repeat, you are human too. And you become upset, angry, or even sad once in a while. And these stronger emotions often release adrenaline. But remember, the body will reabsorb this adrenaline if you're patient and when you stop adding to the situation with fearful what-if thinking. It's logical and it makes sense. So the next time emotions create a little bit of excess energy in your body, move around, walk it off. And within 3 to 5 minutes, your body will reabsorb this excess energy created by your emotions and worried thoughts. And so the best advice I can give to you for overcoming these obstacles, memories, emotional reactions, or interferences that temporarily interrupt your progress is understanding. Knowledge truly is power. When you understand something, it can no longer interfere with your life. Learn to understand what is going on and look at the logic in this situation. Also, don't overreact to these reactions. Learn to underreact, accept them, and move on. Also, review your material as a boost to reinforce your memory. You might want to listen to one tape a day. Also, reinforce what you learned by continuing forward, even if your pace is a tad slower. But that's okay. Just keep moving ahead. Don't let this bully you into negative thinking or inaction. This is not your goal. This is not what you've learned. You've learned to be stronger. You'll notice that even if you try to sit still and feel sorry for yourself, it won't last. You've come too far. I remember when one of these incidents occurred with me, I was much more eager to get back out there again and prove myself. Feeling good is addictive too. Your adult voice, even though temporarily shoved off its axis, will surface through the noise. I remember after an incident like this occurred with me, there was no turning back. I had come too far with this journey and nothing could stop me now. It didn't matter. I was going somewhere and nothing could stop me. These feelings of disappointment are short-lived anyway. They will not stick as before. They can't. They don't have the fuel to keep up the intensity. You will not energize the twinges because you are aware of how they operate, logically speaking. They are more of an annoyance than anything, and you'll recognize that. Giving something importance is an interesting concept. It works throughout life. Think about the times you wanted to avoid something or someone. Wherever you went, there they were in your face. The minute the conflict was resolved, you never saw them again or thought about them. Anxiety reactions are the same. You know the drill. If any type of anxiety rears its ugly head, the minute you learn how to quell this, it's not shouting for your attention, it's not in your face, it's quietly dissolved into the fabric of your life. Once again, understand the source, which is usually an emotional trigger. Embrace the sensations by welcoming them with complete surrender and total submission. We experience them out, and again, feel the empowerment that comes with knowing how to react. This is actually a great chance to practice your skills and a greater opportunity to show what you're made of, to test your mettle one more time. Also, as I have mentioned, it's not as difficult as going through these reactions the first time. You'll notice the symptoms last a limited period of time, especially when you call them on their source and shut them down at the get-go. You may also feel a little off on one day and great on the next. You may feel off at 1 o'clock and great by 3 o'clock. You cannot time this. If you're truly conscious and tuned in, you may bounce back in a few minutes. It's how you interpret the situation. It's the only thing that powers it or diminishes the fuel from it. You can absolutely cut these interruptions down to a few minutes. I remember in the beginning when I was really struggling with anxiety and I would have this type of interference, I used to hold on to the fear and not do too much, test myself for a full day. I cut that down to a few hours and then back to a few minutes. It's all about self-talk and understanding, using your coping skills and letting go of self-pity. Time is just a number, and feelings, emotions, and twinges can be fleeting. There is no cause for alarm, and it's not back. Under any circumstances, we all go through periods of stress in our lives. This is just one example. It's merely a challenge to use your skills again. Stress actually is positive in many ways. Recently, there was an article in the newspaper concerning lions and how they were placed under near perfect conditions in the zoo, and they had ceased to thrive. Their lifespans were diminishing and they were not doing well overall. After studies, they realized that the one thing they were missing in their lives was normal stress. They decided to place the monkey cages closer to the lions' cages in an effort to study the reactions and monitor the behavior. They found the lions thrived. After being taunted and tantalized by the energetic monkeys nearby, they had something to do. The result was so noticeable, they came to the conclusion that they needed the stimulation of stress in order to function fully. The monkeys kept them on their toes. They had interaction, and a little stress went a long way, which proves stress in small doses is challenging. It will keep you on your toes and remove the boredom in your life. It will allow you to think, to use your skills, and learn to react appropriately. I don't even believe the word setback applies as much as slow down. It's simply a place in the road where you're a little low on gas and your vehicle operates at a lower rate of speed, a slower speed. It doesn't signify a complete stop or a flat tire. It means it might be time to regroup, slow down, speak slower, take your time, pause, refresh the mind, review your skills, watch your diet, nutrition, renew your exercise skills, and before you know it, you're back soaring down that road again, relieved and content in the knowledge that nothing will stop you from moving forward. You know, we all have times in our lives when we feel sick, have a fever, hormones spike and fall, and we genuinely are ill. There have been so many cases where people have called me and said, I feel very shaky and out of sorts today, and I'm afraid my anxiety is back. After discussing the current events of their lives and why they may feel that way, we often come to the conclusion that something was going on that stimulated an emotional upheaval. Even small emotional upsets may resensitize temporarily, or they weren't sleeping well, or they were actually coming down with a minor cold or flu. They were often experiencing that rundown feeling that people feel right before they get sick. It becomes so easy to blame everything on anxiety once you've dealt with this condition. But not everything is panic and anxiety in life. Sometimes you actually are ill with a small infection, minor stomach upset, or a common cold working on you. This is your body's way of telling you to slow down and take care of yourself. I also remember when I was fully immersed in panic episodes and hyper aware of every change in my mind and body. Everything signified a new symptom in my mind. Then when I began to sneeze and cough and actually spiked a low-grade fever, in a sense I felt relieved. I was truly sick this time. But that made sense to me. I could deal with that. I still felt awful, but the fear was gone due to my interpretation. I could deal with true illness. I had done that before and survived. The brain needs to know it will survive, but anxiety, the unknown, the mind has difficulty dealing with this. This is when you have to remind yourself what anxiety is, what it is not, and how to deal with it. Don't let your mind run away with you in fear. You know the truth. You know the logic, you know the answers. Find your adult voice and continue to use it. Also, remember, arousal is merely arousal. The body produces the same symptoms for all emotional arousals. If you are fearful, the same set of symptoms and the same pattern appears as if you were sad or even happy. Compare all arousals in your life. You'll be astonished by the similarity in reactions. The only difference is your interpretation. You label excitement, happiness, fun as a positive experience, of course. How about if you hit the lottery? Wouldn't your heart begin racing? Wouldn't you begin sweating? Wouldn't you even feel a little lightheaded? But you would tell yourself this is normal in the circumstances. And you probably would not add what if thoughts to the situation, and therefore these reactions would stop very quickly. If you would do the same thing with a fear reaction, it would end just as quickly. Another example of how much control you actually possess in all situations. There are also times when life hands us a raw deal and we're hurt, upset, or disappointed by our circumstances. It's all part of life and no one gets a free ride. It seems that we all fall upon bad times every now and then, and dealing with this is just another challenge we have to face. I do know that these skills apply to all stressful situations and will enable you to be better prepared no matter what the issue. A problem resolved from a calm and less reactive point of view will be resolved a lot quicker and certainly makes life a lot easier. Once you adjust your life, you'll realize that these obstacles require minor adjustments. You'll find you're better prepared for stress in general, and this time on your playing field, on your terms. Remember, too, that anxiety is not a disease. It never was. The antidote for misplaced thinking is to adjust the way you look at something. All you ever needed was a brief adjustment in thinking, nothing you can't handle. So please feel assured that Un Setbacks, or whatever you want to call them, pauses, slow-ups, adjustments, are merely a brief crimp in the chain of recovery. There's nothing to fear, to be upset about, or think negatively about. It's a normal challenge in your path of progress. The less you fear, the quicker you'll be moving forward at a speedy rate. It's worth a few obstacles in the path, believe me. What you gain in the long run is something that's worth everything in the world. Once you know you can handle anything that comes your way, you'll become stronger than you ever thought you could. Continue to use your skills. They'll never let you down. You have earned your power, and it will always enable you to turn off these interruptions and lead you out of fear. Have a wonderful week.